If you clicked into this video,
you're probably wondering,
if this is a conversation about women,
why are we only interviewing men?
The Guardian reported last week that 97% of young women between the age of 18 and 24 have been sexually harassed in the UK.
You might think this is scary, but isn't it scarier that women are reduced to passive statistics?
Hi, my name's Su Shien.
And I'm Charlotte.
And we're both second years at the University of Cambridge.
Today, we are reclaiming our agency and actively inviting men to join our conversation on gender violence.
It is not enough to simply create a safe space for women to discuss their past trauma. We need to create a safe space for women, period.
We think it is important for men to join our conversation because we need to close the gap between how men and women understand these issues.
Our focus today is to get men to start actively thinking about their role in this wider discourse. The issue of sexual harassment must involve everyone, not just her.
I think it's just basically anything that can make someone feel
uncomfortable.
Feel uncomfortable, whether it's like verbal or whether it's a physical assault.
And obviously there's a very legal sort of definition, but I think at the end of the day, it's really about what the other person feels.
From the perspective of the person doing it, it's probably just banter. And so it's this thing of like, where does the thing stop being just banter and cross into this realm of sexual harassment?
In a university context,
There's a power dynamic at play.
An imbalance of power. Freshers can face sexual harassment from older students, academics, superiors.
Make sure that consent is a key part in any interaction with people.
Seeking consent is the greatest thing.
I can't remember ever seeing something that I would call sexual harassment.
I haven't witnessed it
in real life.
But that's probably because I'm just not aware of it and not looking out for it, rather than because it didn't happen.
I've seen catcalling.
Catcalling, pretty blatant on social media, making sexual comments about other people.
Oh, yeah, of course, all the time. In the
Clubs in Cambridge.
It was in Cindy's.
I was totally paralysed by the situation. I had no idea how to respond. I was completely useless.
And the most worrying sort of thing is that he didn't stop because he knew what he was doing was wrong and he was making her uncomfortable. It was because I sort of came in and intervened. So it wasn't him respecting her, it was just respecting me as a male instead.
So I think step one is listening.
Just listening.
Listen.
Be there to listen.
But also to talk to other men, particularly in male-only spaces.
University societies treat women, treat the victims of sexual harassment and assault when they come forward.
Easier said than done. If it's like a group setting and there is banter, it's very hard to be the kind of the wet blanket and be like, hey guys, we probably shouldn't be saying this sort of stuff. But it's something that I'm trying to be better at, and I know lots of my friends are trying to do as well.
And not in a way that we're trying to attack them, in a way that we're trying to make them realize what is the boundaries and have you ever crossed these boundaries and what is it unacceptable to cross the boundary.
If you're in a club, just being aware of who's around your friends. People often use that as an excuse, like it's a crammed dance floor. That's certainly not something you can hide behind.
Try and prevent it. Stand against it.
Calling out inappropriate behaviour if we do see it.
And to be actively thinking, is what I'm doing wrong?
And acknowledge the severity of the issue.
And especially not to blame victims.
I can walk home walk out the house right now with complete impunity and just not give a shit. But if my housemate were to try and do the same, there'll be all sorts of issues associated with that.
A man can never understand what it's like to be a woman.
There is a tendency for men to say, let me tell you what I think is the best solution. Let me tell you what I think your experience should be. Yes, sexual harassment goes both ways, but from the start of time, women have disproportionately been the ones who are affected. We should play more of a supportive role rather than trying to steamroll them. That's very much like a savior complex.
I don't know the extent of harassment faced by women, and I would hate to go about it the wrong way. I would not want to put my female friend on a podium being like, explain your assault.
My role as a father, to have a son in terms of making sure they're aware of the issues and the boundaries and bring them in a way that they.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that the conversation's been around, and like, what can we actually do beyond just sharing something on Instagram and say, hey, educate men.
I mean, I've personally never really
sat down and had a conversation with my male friends. Probably not as much as I should.
Not in the way that I hope to. Probably not enough. Definitely not enough.
to say I'm like a pretty good judge of character when it comes to people I associate with. Yeah, that's the thing though, exactly. Don't we all?
We imagine perpetrators and predators to look very different, to be these scary, imposing, unnatural people. And the biggest realisation I've had
is that it's the same people who walk these streets, who inhabit these colleges, can inhabit positions of power at this university.
Everyone thinks they're the good guy in their situation, and everyone is probably thinking, oh, me and my friends wouldn't do that, and yet we've got this 97% statistic. So clearly there's like some kind of disconnect between what we as guys think we're like and what women actually experience.
You know, he's all right, but you need to watch him on a night out. What was she wearing? She was asking for it. These kinds of phrases creep into discourse at Cambridge.
There are comments coming from men which, I suppose has to be challenged.
I have challenged them sometimes, but not enough.
It's quite hard to discuss your own behaviour. People don't want to admit that maybe something they've done before is bad, so that's a bit harder to bring up. But I've been quite lucky as a member of a sports team that we've had a workshop.
The Good Lad Initiative. We've been doing this for 3 years.
We've made it mandatory, having an open, honest discussion about behaviours that might make people uncomfortable.
To sort of set the standards for the team as well.
Social media.
Was social media.
Social media.
Social media.
Unfortunately, it takes a big movement or something major happening for the conversation to come into the realm of people who don't normally talk about this stuff.
I realized how easy it is for men to turn a blind eye on it because it doesn't directly affect us.
In the university, we've had a Breaking the Silence campaign.
Being worried about being alone in a room with someone, comments from academic supervisors that cross a line, considering and carefully planning your routes to and from places. And these are a set of experiences that just men don't encounter.
It was actually through a Dua Lipa song, Boys Will Be Boys, and I was just listening to it because it's just pop music and it was playing in a club, but I actually paid attention to the lyrics one day and it said, hold my keys between my knuckles when boys are around. And many women, I was speaking to some of my friends, they do this instinctively and they've been doing it for years. I'm shocked that I learned about it through a pop song.
I genuinely think that everyone's sort of just aware of the issue.
Situation of domestic abuse, that's been occurring for years.
And it's more about how much time you give yourself to reflect on it.
For 5 years, I was at an all-boys school, and I don't remember having, I was sort of 11 to 16 years old, and I don't remember having, a PSHE class on sexual harassment, social behaviours at all.
There's the pretty obvious stuff of like, don't sexually harass women, don't sexually assault women, don't kill people.
Taking down your hood when you're walking down the street to make people feel more comfortable.
Just simply asking, is there anything I can do for you? Do you want to be on a call when you're walking home? Will that help? Things like that. If you want to just walk them quickly to the nearest metro station.
Often in allyship, it's about knowing where to position yourself. Very often when we talk about violence against women, we use that phrase and we miss out who the perpetrator is.
We need to create more spaces and platforms for women and for people, really, to voice out their experiences.
And also hold your friends accountable.
When you do see it happening, do something about it instead of being quiet about it.
I think leading by example and being a model.
I'm an openly gay man and try to be slightly more gay around women just because I want to make them feel comfortable. I don't know if that's the answer to these things, because obviously this is pigeonholing.
I suspect the actual work to be done is in kind of the assumptions underlying all of these things, like issues of entitlement and equality and these sort of bigger issues that aren't as easy to point to. A lot of these are unconscious biases, and unless they're like pointed out or unless we're actively looking for them, we're not going to find them.
More open mindset. On Twitter, I think it was, there was like this trending hashtag. The idea behind it wasn't to actually get 6 p.m. curfew for men, but it was that for a man to even consider having a curfew set just because he's a man is crazy, right? But women have to deal with that kind of stuff on a regular, a daily basis.
And it's very easy, 2 weeks from now when people stop talking about this, inevitably, to go back into our ways of thinking, and this, just because it's so default of it, is just kind of keeping it front of mind. Beyond that, I don't really know. These are big issues, and I'm afraid I don't have an easy answer to the solution of how we can stop these problems from happening in the future.
This movement against sexual harassment should involve everyone.
Not just her.
Not just her.
Not just her.
Men think they're not part of that, there's no responsibility, there's no action they can play. And it's
not just her.
Not just her.
Not just her.
It's not just her who needs to talk.